Hi, welcome to this week's 7 Spiritual Coaching Minutes with me, Don McAvinci. I'm looking at the wrong place on my little phone camera. There it is over there. Right there. That's where I should be looking. Okay. I'm outside of my beautiful yard that I share with Berta. And you can see the steps leading up to her house back behind me. But I was thinking this week about this event that happened for me, and I wanted to share it with you because it raises some really interesting questions for me about my own spiritual path. And I thought it might be helpful for me to share this with you and for you to kind of consider some of these ideas, some of the questions about it. So, my intention with the 7 Spiritual Coaching Minutes is to give you a bit of a taste of some spiritual ideas that you can then pursue yourself and test them out for yourself. I don't mean in any way to be pretending like I'm smarter about spirituality or that I'm the master or anything like that. And at the same time, I think I have some things to offer that come from my own experience. I've literally spent the last 43 years exploring my own spiritual practice, my own spiritual path, and going down many different roads and many pitfalls that I fell into, and some really, really wonderful experiences. All of which have impacted me and helped me to become a spiritual coach and to be of service to other people who are interested in finding their own way. And what I think of as creating your radically personal spiritual path. So, in sharing this this experience this week, that kind of tripped me out, to be honest. That's kind of where I'm coming from, is to be of help to you, but also sharing myself and what, the journey that I'm on too, because we're all on this together, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be able to share with each other. So here's what happened. I had to, was asked to testify in a court hearing that has to do with child custody. And I'm not going to go into the details because it was with a client and stuff, but what was so interesting to me is how incredibly anxious and nervous I got leading up to it. It has been years since I've sat in a courtroom on the witness stand. I used to do it fairly often when I worked in the juvenile justice system back in Michigan. I'd have to go and speak to the judge and talk about a young person who was trying to get out of the residential placements that I worked in, and to kind of advocate for them, So here I was, all these years later, getting ready to go into court. And I was I was practicing things I wanted to say, and getting nervous thinking about it, and in some ways being righteously indignant about different aspects of what I wanted to say and what I see going on in this case. And I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I couldn't go back to sleep, and I got a migraine headache for a while that thankfully I have this good medication that takes care of those things. But boy, oh boy, did I get anxious. And I wondered, the whole thing passed, I did fine, we'll see what happens with the case. I said, somebody asked me how it went, and I said, well, I didn't vomit, I didn't have a heart attack, and the words came out of my mouth. So I guess it was a success. But man, if this is how people feel who are struggling with anxiety, no wonder it's so debilitating. My gosh, I was so knocked over by how nervous and anxious I was. And it's almost laughable because, like, kind of once I got into it, about 5-10 minutes into being on the witness stand, it was just kind of flowing and things were happening and people were asking me questions, and I was doing the best I could, cutting myself some slack about things that I said and trying to be, as integrated for my own integrity as I possibly could. Spiritually, though, here's what I wanted to talk about. What do we do as spiritual beings, as people who are spiritually minded, when we get thrown into situations that are so anxiety-producing for us? How can we hold on to and stay in line with and in tune with that spiritual sense of ourselves, even in the midst of these really anxious-producing moments? That's kind of what I was wondering. And I wanted to share that question with you because I think it's important that when we run into the difficult parts of our lives, when we face adversity, Sarah Bareilles says in her song Gravity, that we stare into the face of the enemy. And I don't mean the people as enemy. What I mean is the situation, as enemy. When that happens, how do we stay as close as we can to the attunement that we're looking for, the centeredness that we're looking for, and return to it as quickly as possible? Return to find that sense of ourselves in that centered place, that sense of integration, of integrity, of who we are as people. That's my question that I want you to think about. And I'm really curious about what works for other people, like what works for you in making sure that you don't go too far away into the anxiety itself when difficult moments come up, or the fear, or the frustration, but also how you return. Thomas Leonard, the head of the father of the coaching profession, years ago came here to Santa Fe and did a workshop. And he said he always felt like he was connected to God, because when he wasn't feeling connected to God, then there was something in him that would remind him to try to return and find that connection again. And he considered that part of him the constant connection, or it wouldn't be able to remind him that he was a bit off track. And I thought that was so kind of ingenious as a way to consider our spiritual lives. You can have a God sort of focus or not, doesn't matter to me. But to return to that sense of our spiritual lives, our path, our most meaningful part of who we are. That's what I'm wondering about. And I'm wondering about how you do it, how you return. Because we're always going to run into difficulties. There's no way around that. There are always going to be challenging moments. What we do with those challenging moments and what we do after those challenging moments, to me, seem to be really, really key. So, 7 spiritual coaching minutes. We're actually almost at 9 minutes of this video, but I wanted to pass that question on to you and let you know about this experience that I survived. Oh my gosh, I was so nervous. But I did get through it, and I did the best I could, and cutting myself all kinds of great, compassionate, self-loving slack afterwards that, that I made it. All right, go out and have a great week. Keep returning to your own spiritual life as much as you can, and I look forward to seeing you in about a week. And leave your comments below about my questions here. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.